just have one word?
Between Georgia and European Union has been ratified by European Parliament in the vote yesterday. And the EPP is profoundly convinced that if not for the modernizing the country, for Europeanizing the country by President Saakashvili and his team, this would not happen today. So we, EPP, we pay tribute to the efforts of reforms and change and European cause of the governments of President Saakashvili, and this is our conviction. And we hope that Georgia will stop backsliding on democracy, backtracking on reforms, and also that it will be truthful to those European values and standards which are enshrined in the association agreement, which refer to the standards of democracy, refusing and not pursuing this road of selective justice and persecuting opposition, and even more also aligning its policy on those of the European Union. European Union is supporting Ukraine's European cause and Ukraine's territorial integrity, and it is unacceptable for the European Union to hear what Prime Minister of Georgia of today says, that he accuses West of supporting Ukraine's cause towards its territorial integrity, as if it was not the same cause as territorial integrity of Georgia with South Ossetia and Abkhazia. Thank you.
We had today the opportunity that we could ratify in the European Parliament the Association and Free Trade Agreement with Georgia. I think this is an incredible step forward, and that we want to have the possibility to implement it. We hope that Russia will not disturb it, as in the question of Moldova and Ukraine. It's a question of the sovereign choice of every nation to make a decision with whom, which agreement it would sign and implement. And therefore, I hope that this rule of the international law will be kept, the Helsinki Agreement of the sovereign rights of nations, and that frozen conflicts are not used to destabilize. It's Abkhazia and South Ossetia, it's Lugansk and Donetsk, it's Transnistria, it's always the same method. And therefore we hope that this can be stopped. We are ready to support Georgia, and we are very clear in these association agreements. We say that it's always more for more. That's a principle, and it means that the success story can only be done if there's the economic transformation and the political transformation going on, including the question of the rule of law, including selective justice as part of it, as the democratic development of. I had a phone call with President Saakashvili in the evening of the parliamentary elections, and we discussed it for the transition of power, and he said you must make it possible that there's a peaceful democratic transition of power, and he told me that it's right, but it has to happen twice. We'll never forget that, and therefore we hope we have such a development that a change of government is part of a democratic game, but it's a decision of the people. But the people must have the free decision in a free democracy and the rule of law, and I hope that this association agreement will be helpful for such a development, such a transformation process. Thank you. European Union, and this is part of the way of Georgia in her fate as with a European perspective. And here I can give you only one example. And yes, perhaps as a Polish citizen can confirm it. I don't just the figures of Ukraine, but it's Georgia not a different thing. In 1990, the GNP of Poland and Ukraine was the same. And I think more or less also in Georgia.
Per capita.
Per capita. Per capita. And then it was a transformation process to become a full democracy under the rule of law and make the economic changes in such a transformation process. And Poland was going the European way. The result is the GNP per capita in Poland is nowadays 5 times so high as the GNP of Ukraine. Therefore, this European perspective might be not the worst case for a country to go. It's different to that what we hear now from Russia, is the economic problems that citizens in Russian villages 50 kilometers outside of Moscow live under the same circumstances they lived in 30 years ago. This is a choice countries have to make. Would you like to live like these Russian citizens in the villages, or do they want to go the Polish way to live in, as people live in Poland nowadays? That's a choice people have to make. That is their free choice. And our association agreement is an offer to help them to go in the right direction in any possible way.
In our resolution, we are critical about Georgia of today. We think that Georgia abuses principles of parliamentary democracy. It uses judicial system to persecute political opposition and applies something we have been fighting for so long in case of Ukraine, selective justice. Political opponents are jailed. Political leaders are in fact in exile because they are followed by Georgian state. This is something which is unacceptable. It is not a fully fledged democracy according to the European standards. Also the standards of the public life in Georgia are less and less are complying with the standards, international European standards. So backsliding on democracy is the first criticism. Second is overall. Second is selective justice and harassment of opposition. And the fourth is, which I did mention, is that that Georgia does not do what is promised in the association agreement, to align its policies with the policies of the Union. And the policy of the Union is to support territorial integrity of Ukraine and support Ukraine in its effort, while Georgian Prime Minister is criticizing the West, EU and America, for supporting Ukraine in that effort. This is unacceptable. So we think that we are associating the nation of Georgia, not the present government. We are associating a country thanks to the achievements of the previous government and in spite of the backsliding and backtracking on those achievements by the present government. So the association agreement will be a powerful instrument to get things right. If not, this association agreement and process will be stalled. And also it will be contrary to the will and wish of 80% of Georgians who have the true, profound commitment towards European values. That's where we are. So we welcome the association, the achievements of the past, we are critical of the present day, and we look into the future. But it is a very principled and fundamental position of the Union, and mainly EPP party.
Yes.